you're a typical American, you've been told your whole life that exercise is good for you. And for the most part, that's true. But you might be surprised to learn that some exercises can be quite risky. In fact, some exercises are downright dangerous. Welcome to Fitness and Wellness for a Lifetime. I'm Dr. Steve Ball, an exercise scientist and certified strength and conditioning specialist with the University of Missouri. In this segment of the series, I'm going to talk about several risky exercises that most people don't even realize are dangerous. You'll see demonstrations of these exercises along with safer alternatives. First, let's cover some basic health information regarding exercise. It's understood that exercise promotes health. However, there are some exercises that, if done repeatedly or for an extended period of time, will increase your risk of injury and in many cases will cause permanent impairment. Fitness experts use several terms to describe these types of exercises, such as risky, questionable, and hazardous. The term risky is most appropriate because it means your risk of having a muscle or joint problem at some time in your life is greater. It doesn't mean that a certain exercise will necessarily be a problem. However, studies involving athletes who have performed similar movements over the course of their careers indicate that they have many more joint-related injuries than others. And although injury can occur with any type of exercise, the risky exercises we're going to discuss typically occur while trying to improve flexibility, muscular strength, or muscular endurance, as opposed to injuries that might occur during an aerobic workout. Some of these risky exercises may cause an acute injury. It's fairly easy to know when an acute injury such as a sprained ankle or a pulled muscle occurs, because these are injuries that happen at a specific time and you're aware of the injury because you feel pain. Besides these obvious injuries that may occur, certain exercises may also cause undetectable damage. We call these types of injuries microtrauma. Microtrauma is a small injury that we typically don't even realize occurs. However, these small injuries accumulate over time and develop into big problems. Most commonly, microtrauma leads to the premature aging or wearing out of joints. Two anatomical terms I'll be using to describe these problems are hyperextension and hyperflexion. Hyperextension is a term used to describe excessive and unnatural movement of a joint, extending it farther than it naturally goes. Hyperextension of the back would be arching or extending the back beyond a straight line. Hyperflexion, on the other hand, means flexing or bending a joint excessively. It is the opposite of hyperextension. A baseball catcher that is squatting down is hyperflexing the knee joint. The good news is that for most risky exercises, there are safer alternatives. So let's take a closer look at some of these so you'll know exactly what to avoid. There are several risky upper body exercises that I would like to mention. One of the most common is neck circles. Many people rotate the head in order to relax the neck muscles. This can cause damage to the discs because the top two vertebrae, the atlas and axis, are in an alignment that does not naturally permit full hyperextension. A better alternative if you're trying to stretch out the neck muscles is to do the clock exercise. Move the head to the various positions on the clock, but not backward, and hold at each position for 10 to 30 seconds. Neck hyperflexion, on the other hand, is pulling your neck too far forward, especially under force like when doing sit-ups. This can cause excessive stretching of the neck ligaments. A safer way to perform this exercise is to place the arms across the chest. Pretend there is an apple under your chin wedged against your chest. Attempt to keep this space between your chin and chest during the movement. This will keep your head stationary. Risky exercises for the lower body include the knees and legs. Don't bend the knee backwards or hyperextend it too much. This can happen in the leg press or leg extension exercises if you lock out your knees. When this happens, it takes stress off the quadriceps muscles, which you're trying to work, and places it on the knee joint, which can cause problems. Just make sure you don't totally extend your legs. It's wise to have a spotter on this lift. You also don't want to hyperflex or bend the knee too much in the opposite direction. This might occur with full squats or deep knee bends. When performing lunges, squats, or even the leg press, make sure your knee doesn't pass over your toes, which could cause knee problems. A good way to avoid this problem is to perform squats using a Smith machine, and make sure you don't go past the 90-degree point. This piece of equipment aids in proper form and balance. There are also some newer squatting machines that place you in the correct position when starting. I advocate learning to do squats in this type of machine first before attempting to do free squats. As far as the leg press goes, avoid placing strain on the knee by moving your feet a little higher on the platform. This exercise is commonly called the cobra and is an attempt to stretch the chest and lower back. The subject is attempting to arch the back and neck as much as possible while maintaining the pelvis on the ground. The problem here is you're hyperextending the lower back and neck, stretching the abdominal muscles. The result is a compression of the lower vertebral discs, which is thought to be a possible contributor to lower back pain. An alternative is the leg hug. Grasp your legs from underneath and pull them to you. Make sure not to pull from the top of your knees, as you will often end up hyperflexing them. The on all fours exercise is when you lift one leg higher than the other. This is also known as the donkey kick. Again, the problem is the hyperextension of the lower back and neck. A better way to do this exercise is to keep the head down in a more neutral position and only lift the leg to horizontal. This will help avoid those hyperextended positions while still working the back of the leg and buttocks areas. Another exercise that is risky is the double leg lift. The problem here is that the exercise is not primarily an abdominal exercise like many people think, but rather an exercise for the hip flexors. These are muscles that help you bend at the waist and raise your leg at the hip. Excessively strong and tight hip flexors can pull the pelvis forward, resulting in a sway back position. Lower back muscles can become fatigued in this position and can lead to lower back problems. An alternative to this is the reverse curl, which puts the work on the abdominals. You lay on your back with your shoulders and arms on the floor and slowly curl up by pulling your knees to your chest. The crunch is also another alternative that works the abs. This is a common exercise but may be problematic if you arch or hyperextend the back while performing it. This is normally caused by trying to lift too much weight. Try lowering the weight and concentrating on keeping your back flat on the bench. Another alternative is putting your feet up on the bench. Some of the newer benches now have foot pegs for this reason. You can also try placing a box on the floor and put your feet on that. Otherwise, keep your feet on the floor and focus on not arching the back. Be sure not to bounce the weight off your chest. This could damage the breastbone if you're using a lot of weight. This is an exercise I see many people performing without difficulty. However, when the bar is pulled down behind the head, it is a risky exercise for the neck and shoulder joints. The safer alternative, which works most of the same muscle groups, is to pull the bar down in front of the face to the top of the chest. Just make sure not to lean too far backward. Another variation is using an underhanded grip. This usually makes the lift easier, so you may have to increase the resistance. Although popular, both the bike exercise and the yoga plow are risky because they cause the neck to bend or flex excessively under the weight and pressure of the body. While the main reason for these exercises is to stretch out the lower back, what actually happens is that the ligaments in the neck are excessively stretched. An alternative is the leg hug, which we previously looked at. Grasp your legs from underneath and pull them to you. Another exercise to avoid is a standing toe touch. This exercise is used to stretch the hamstring muscles, but in reality, it is stretching mostly the spinal ligaments. Consequently, this exercise can lead to overly stretched support structures of the spine, and eventually a weak lower back, making it more susceptible to injury, such as degenerative disc changes, and could even result in problems such as sciatica, which is characterized by a radiating pain down the back of the leg. An alternative is the one leg at a time back saver hamstring stretch. Keep one knee bent and hands behind the back. Place one foot up against the wall and lean into this exercise. Another risky exercise is the ballet stretch. This exercise forcibly hyperextends the leg. It's potentially harmful to raise the leg more than 90 degrees. If this exercise is regularly repeated, back and leg problems can occur. An alternative to stretch the back of the leg would be the one leg at a time back saver hamstring stretch that we just looked at. This is a quadricep stretch in which the toe is grabbed and the muscles on the front of the thigh and shin are stretched. The problem is that instead of bringing it straight back, many people put the knee at risk by torquing it. In this position, we also hyperflex the knee and cause it to be overly stretched. An alternative exercise that is much safer and better for stretching the quads is the hip and thigh stretch. Kneel down, put one leg in front, and press forward with the hip. Keep the hips forward for a better stretch in the quads. An alternative for your shin muscles is to kneel down with your toes behind you and gradually lean back. This move can also be quite effective in relieving cramps in the shin. This is called the hero exercise. It is also known as the double hurdler stretch. Both the single leg hurdler stretch and the hero stretch are examples of people trying to stretch the quads. The reason these stretches are harmful is that they stretch the medial ligaments of the knee, as well as potentially damaging the meniscus, which is the shock-absorbing cartilage in the middle of your knee. The hip and thigh stretch that we just looked at is a much better alternative. Along these same lines, the knees to the chest exercise is causing some of the same problems with the knee joint. Basically, the knee is overly flexed. If you're going to squeeze your legs to your chest, you should grab your legs under the knee rather than pulling and hyperflexing the knee. This is the correct way to perform this move. Of course, no video series could ever cover all the possible exercises out there. So keep in mind the following guidelines when approaching a new exercise. For upper body exercises, pay attention to your neck and back. Focus on exercises that don't hyperflex or hyperextend the neck. And for the back, arching exercises are the worst. The purpose of many of these exercises is to stretch the abdominal muscles. However, while exercises that strengthen abs are good, flexible abs offer no real health or fitness advantage. For the lower body, Avoid the same type of hyperflexing and hyperextending of joints, mainly the knees in these cases. Focus on exercises that don't hyperflex the knee. You also don't want to do exercises that transfer the strain from your quads to your knees, such as what happens when you lock your knees. It's important to train your body safely. It's the accumulated repetitions of risky exercises over time that can cause damage. And just because you've been doing a risky exercise and it hasn't caused you problems, doesn't mean it never will. With Fitness and Wellness for a Lifetime, I'm Steve Ball.